Okay. All right. So let's cover the last lesson, lesson 25 for the week. H Radio 223 for our timers. And we're going to look at performance and formatics. Where does this come from? Well, it comes from Beyond Powerful Radio, page 45 to 64, chapter 6. Okay. So quite a short lesson with this one here. So because we've looked at running orders, looked at prep so far. We also looked at features, and now let's look at kind of the bigger picture as to how it is that you're going to execute and bring forward or put forward what is that you put into motion by planning and prepping, etc., etc. Right. So we know that I know that you know that I know that you know that you've heard the term or the phrase theater of the mind. In other words, being able to invoke through, let's say, the art of conversation, someone's imagination and someone's creativity that they can picture something within their mind. And obviously, as that relates to radio, it's because as we speak and as we talk about stuff and as we speak and like go through a story or an anecdote or we introduce a guest and we go through their experiences and their expertise, people are picturing the two people that are speaking or that person that is speaking at that particular moment, but also as they speak, as they talk, right? We are literally putting pictures in their mind as to, like what we obviously describing, what we're covering or going through. And yes, so that's basically turning whatever we say into pictures, talk into pictures, theater of the mind. Why is this so important? The more engaged someone is, I'm saying in a creative way. So let's say through what they can quote unquote imagine, right? So they're imagining that. That means they're actually invested in. If something's boring or someone is boring or they're talking about something boring, a presenter's genuinely just giving them nothing, no one's going to pay attention, nor will they actually put the investment in or the time or their effort, should I say, into thinking about anything further than switching that particular station or that presenter or show off. So let's look at some theoretics around your performance and the formatics. In other words, formatics is the word that's used to describe how we put something together. So the formatics, the format, right, of our show, the format of a feature, the format of a call out, the format of a clock, and the format of a station, right? The formatics, right? So when you listen to the radio, you'll notice that talent, which is experienced and should be on air, will speak quite naturally. In other words, there's not going to be this awkwardness and this kind of me reading things word for word out of a script or again saying things that don't sound like me or me not even sounding like myself. It's a natural execution and a natural process, right? So there'll also be talent who seem pained and uncomfortable when things go astray, right? And they may make you feel uneasy to hear them react to the situation as well. This happens to literally every single body that is or has been or will be on radio because there are going to be situations that throw you off and you can hear always describe this as you can feel the sweat on the back of your neck, man. That's the worst. It's like the worst place to sweat because you know then you are in trouble, man. If you literally are dripping and from the back of your neck, it isn't a great situation ever, but it will. There's no guarantee that you can ever stop it from happening being in a situation like, for example, having a really important person on the line, and it's your only chance to speak to them in that particular moment, and then things cut off. Like it just goes dead, and you can't get them back on air. What you're going to say? I'm like, oh, okay, we'll try to get them back on air. That sounds pretty cool. That sounds easy. But then you attempt that while the music's playing, and you can't get hold of them, and now you're starting to sweat on the back of your neck, right? And you come back on thinking as if you need to save face, which you actually do, but you don't have to explain. So the more you explain a problem and the more you explain a situation or excuse it, the more it sounds like, well, you did something wrong, and people are not really interested in more than that bottom line, right? Okay, so the truth is that it takes years of really hard work and practice. That's the big thing. So actual exposure on air and behind the mic and within all these different types of situations that could obviously present different problems and obstacles and again like critical thinking, that type of stuff to be able to get to a point where you can call yourself a seasoned professional, right? So they always give the impression that they are in control, a seasoned professional, right? And no matter what, right? And because the thing is that here is the crux of the matter, or the reality of the situation, right? Is that it's okay. Things happen, and you need to move on, and that's okay. Because things also happen when someone like let's say a factory is trying to is putting together a car, like with all the equipment might go it might break or this or that when they're testing, let's say, a particular car. Definitely, there's going to be some problems. Or when they even release a car, we've heard, I think it was, I'm not sure which model it was, but it was that one model that went out and everyone was super upset about because it cost so much money. And they had to not retract, but they are, I think it is retract all those cars back because of the fault that they had not checked. And yes, there's obviously apologies that are owed, and so on and so forth. But okay, move along. Move along. So performance points. Here's a couple that we're going to go through. Number one is pick a topic about which you really care, right? So if you are interested, you will be interesting. Once again, I have to disclaim along with that tend to so here's how it will actually be interesting to you or you actually care about it because you won for one went to go pick it for your show, right? So you went and said out of everything out there, I'm going to and I'd like to speak about this on my show. So you have some kind of preference in this particular content piece that you're going to talk about, including the show, etc., etc. And so that means that you actually have some kind of vested interest, some buy-in to that particular piece of content, right? Okay, so for that alone there, you should definitely and always be interested and interesting, right? So if you sound bored, yes, it's so obvious that well, then listeners are going to be like, but why? Like, why must I be excited if you're not even excited? Can you imagine again? This is put in a different context, right? So with performance arts, and let's say you go to a stage play, and this person is so disinterested. The one of the actors or actresses are just so disinterested in what is the script and how the character is and who the character is that they are, let's say, standing next to. Well, you're going to be like, what? What is with this person, right? What's going on here? So it's ludicrous, right? It's kind of crazy to actually think that you wouldn't be interested in the stuff you put into your own show. The second thing is one, it's not all about you. You have to be interested in that topic and interesting because it serves your listeners' interests, right? Very important, right? So use a strong show opening or a monologue. Don't read entire prepped speeches. Never, ever, ever, unless you're quoting something. If you must read on air, don't make it sound like you actually are reading. So even if you are quoting, force the quote. I find that if you're going to force the quote and so really accentuate that quote, it has a better impact on and obviously significance in the content that you're actually busy doing on air or executing on air. So But the strong show opening is just as important as having every single link in your show being strong. Why is the show opening so specifically important? Because you're setting the tone for a listener to be like, okay, like like I want to listen more. Like here comes in this person strong. They're not just saying hi, hello, and what's coming up the next 20 minutes is, and then going back to music. But like, well, so basically, you're only going to start. I've said this before. You're only going to start your show half an hour into the actual show, the show itself. No, man, I come in and say something that's purposeful. That's your whole job, right? So never be boring. So get rid of dull guests immediately. For example, dull content immediately, and also your need or want or even a temptation to be dull, right? You may be tired, then go drink a Red Bull. I'm just saying, right? Drink a Red Bull, have a coffee, whatever it may be, like wake yourself up or tend to find a way to sleep better or get better rest, right? So that when you do go on air, you don't sound like the dead, like the living dead, right? So you're probably more interesting than a boring guest. Uh, Ideally, but well, be flexible and protect your on-air product always, please. That's a big thing. So if the guest is great, keep him or her with you longer, right? And for as long as you can, obviously because we are time constricted and everything in radio is actually based around like time management, right? So the effectiveness of radio is based on its ability to be able to stick to stick to basically a schedule. You understand? That clock is not going to change. Those minutes are not going to change. They're not going to magically become 120 seconds for a minute as opposed to 60 seconds, right? So yes, that's true. Keep them there longer, or keep the conversation going on longer, or the piece going longer if you can see that there is an opportunity to dynamically create something more around it. Otherwise, luckily we live today in a day and age where you can go and continue that conversation online. So you run out of time, let's say on air. Then just switch on obviously your phone, switch on IG Live, switch on TikTok Live, and then continue that conversation there. Easy fix, right? So you can again also have added value content and unique content online, while you also have had your moment, right? That's been great on air as well. So why is getting rid of boring guests so difficult? I don't. Uh, okay, I must have more time. I must have to sit and cough. Okay, all right. So this. Okay. Okay. You will. Okay. So when. Okay. Good. I must get to the point, right? I get that, right? Because I'm thinking of situations where, look, you feel bad. You feel kind of guilty. You don't know what to do. You've set up this guest that sounded even maybe great. So you've done your pre-interview great, whatever it is, and now they come on in, they're boring, right? Or whatever it may be, or they're not great. Here is it's easy to just cut the interview short. Be done with it. Even if you had planned them there for an hour and you only get one link out of them, say thank you so much, whatever it is, and then move on to the next thing, just like you would do with content that doesn't work, right? Why is it so difficult? You might feel guilty in that moment. But you should get over it and think about the show and the quality of the show, right? And then just explain to the guest, listen, I can't put you back on air. You're too automated, you're too robotic, you're not really answering the questions. We've gone through the prep before. And so I do thank you, always be polite. I do thank you for the time. And we definitely, obviously, like what you had said and what we have said there for the 4 or 3 minutes that we had you on air, it's fine. But let's move on. And whose fault is it? Mine or yours? It's both of ours, right? Because I maybe couldn't find a way to engage you properly, or I didn't prep properly, or I didn't pre-interview properly, or two. The other thing is the fault is on you. So if you could just maybe have been a better guest, as you had promised to, or as you were off air, or whatever it may have been, then maybe we wouldn't have this conversation at all, right? So just like anything that doesn't work on air, just move along. Okay. So number four, don't take calls just because they're there. Please, like again, if there's 10 callers or 10 voice notes, whatever it is, that's fine. But if they're 10 boring ones, don't play them. Don't play any of them, right? So if they're boring, right? Only if they are good. So good quality guests, good quality callers, good quality voice notes, right? And contributions, right? Same thing goes for anything that you do put in your show. Don't just put something there for the sake of putting it. Let it move and let it help along the story that you're trying to tell your listener, right? So what if the interview or topic goes wrong? That's fine. Just reset it. You are in control, right? And we do sometimes get all of us for a moment, though, depending on obviously your experience and your, like I say, your practice within this particular craft. Yes, see, sometimes you get a lot of guests, right, that do kind of bulldoze their way because they have no social cues. That's a very big issue. So they talk and talk and talk, but they also, sidebar, could also have an alternative or ulterior motive for being on air, like I said, to serve them a purpose and then kind of bulldoze you and kind of like, what? Like, that's not what we're talking about. Okay, don't be a victim. Just be like, look, just interrupt them, stop it, and say, I need. So we're definitely off the point here, and I'll need to go and I want to go back to this question, yeah, or what we're talking about here. So if they don't want to, which really they actually won't, right? In other words, right? So they won't do that. They will just say, oh, okay, yeah, for sure. Let's continue back where it is. Have control in your show because it's your show. And if you don't have control, who does? I'm saying, right? So who can you expect to have that control? Okay, anyway, you can change your mind. So when you do feel like you are, so when you are interviewing or you're going through process or like I'm saying, a particular segment or whatever, and you do hear people making proper justifications for what they say, don't be a people pleaser. Say, okay, no, you know what? I see your point, and don't say that only just so that you can go defend yourself. Say, no, I see your point. I didn't know that actually. Can I ask more? Right. So you go and because someone if you're going to change your mind, easy peasy, right? Just because you then basically, uh, as a person, what type of like stability do you have in a justified, validated, and credible opinion or point of view in life, right? So here's my thing: is that follow that up with a question. Say, oh, okay, well, I now understand more, or I still stand, or I still do stand, with with the point that I did make, because of this and this that you have, and I also said, and I'm getting a clearer picture, and that's great. We love to hear presenters that are human beings but are intelligible, right? So not intelligent, right? Intelligible. In other words, like use your EQ and your IQ at the same time and show that you are a smart person, right? So not an IQ thing, right? Take a risk on the air only if it's calculated well enough and you can almost predict what the outcome of that particular risk will be, right? Okay, please, not at the cost of your station, not at the cost of your manager, okay, and not at the cost of your listener, right? If you get the urge for it, like ask yourself, why do I genuinely have to take this risk, right? No one is saying you mustn't, but you must not if you haven't checked all the checked off all the little check boxes, right? Like ticked off all the check boxes as to why this is a good choice. So I'm gonna push it a little further. Agreed? Right. So number eight, use your off switch. In other words, practice moderation. So when you can see like you need to stop talking and you have so we always have many things to say about a particular something, right? But is it really necessary to say all of them. No, it isn't. So say the things that are most important, even if you're dying to say something else and you know you don't have to, right? Just leave it. No, so just get over that moment. You'll live, I promise you. And again, I say this as someone that genuinely always, every single show that I've done has always had something extra that they would want to say. But then I say, I mean, just shut up, Chris. Like in a nice way. I'm not mean to myself. I'm going to say, shut up. Or just keep quiet, man. It's not necessary. Because the thing is that what I have covered up to that particular point has been like, like perfect, great, right? Okay. The day you wished you stayed in bed and not every show. Ooh, you see why I'm getting emotional about this one. Ooh, I'm in there. Oh, my word. When you have an awful show, it feels like your world has broken around you because you know why? The first things first is you know that everybody who tuned in, in heard you do a terrible show. And you cannot get out of your head, and you will not get out of your head until you come back and do a good show. So again, remember the saying, you're only as good as your last link and your last show. Forgive yourself and move forward, right? So take it as lessons learned, real lessons learned. Take from there, take a cue and then move on. Right. Okay. And it is very difficult, right? And it is supposed to eat you alive because, bah, it isn't a small mistake. Again, it's a big one, but it'll pass, right? So treat the staff you work with respectfully, and treat people in life respectfully, right? Never mind the staff you work for, because the staff one is you need them just as much as they would at some point need you. For that, that's a very selfish way of looking at it, but if it works for you, it works for you. Two, like this is a team effort, right? So anything in life in the workspace is a team effort. And so why not just choose the proper route of saying forward and be nice, right? And be how can I say not confident, what's I'm looking for now? Excited, invested, that type of stuff, right? With the people that you work with, right? And what you're busy doing. Some talent may view formatics as restrictive. In other words, like you have to talk here, you must play the song here, you can't talk for that long, like you must do the news here, you must do that, the competition, but like you must again, as I said to you before, think of a small box as a full place to play in, right? So it's a full space, no matter how, like I say, small it is, and like the way that you decide to use that full space is going to obviously define your attitude towards approaching, like I say, a very restricted environment. Right. On-air personalities must learn to be creative within the confines of formatics. I think I've blown my nose. Give me a second. I'm so, I'm so sorry. I'm like, nothing's working for my nose anyway. All right. I know you just, yeah. Anyway, I get that there was a second difference between me running off the blow and nose and me coming back for the whole autobiography around that. Anyway, I do apologize. Right. Okay. So let's continue. 5 more minutes. How can you use formatics to get those extra 5 minutes, right? In other words, how can you use these tools and these approaches, right, to what does and has been proven to work on radio, right, to keep that listener there for another 5 minutes. Okay, that's all we need. From the next 5 minutes, we're going to get them there for another 5 minutes. For the next that 5 minutes, another five, and so on and so forth. Right? Okay. So one, we want to be able to invite. Don't necessarily just tease, but so in other words, coming up next, we're going to be chatting to Doctor Who and Who from whatever it is, and that's going to be in 7 minutes time. Whatever. We have to invite, we've got to say that, so if you are someone struggling with, um, whatever it is, fibromyalgia, and this has been a chronic ailment of yours for as long as you remember. Finally, to something that has never had an answer but only treatment to, we have a doctor here, a specialist here to give you the good news of what, just give you the good news. I think, let me just shut up there. So that's a better invite, right? As opposed to just a normal throw forward, right? Invite a mere 5 minutes ahead, coming up next, right? So you play a song, you come play the ad, you come back, right? Don't do the full reveal. Don't, because as I just did there, like we don't know what this doctor is going to tell us, and I'm saying as a listener, right? And so the thing is that don't tell him everything, otherwise, then like not necessarily why would I stick around, but what's the point then, right? So if someone tells you, for example, and yeah, just to understand it, I know you do understand it, but let's make an example. So I tell you all that happens in the latest episode of a series we're both watching. Now now what? Then you're gonna be like, come on, dude. Like, why don't you tell me everything? Ah, come on. Don't do the full reveal. Keep something up your sleeve for the inviting by inviting with a hook that reveals or tells your audience what's in it for them. So invite frequently. In other words, do the hook. I'm saying do throw forward a teaser or a promise, quote unquote, write many names for it, very often throughout the show. And do this anytime there's something telegraphing, you might want to leave us now. In other words, you might want to think that you want to switch off and go inside to the gym or go home or whatever it may be, but just wait, just give us another 5 minutes. It'll be worth it, right? So make an appointment, pick a single show highlight, and give the listener the exact time they can hear it. Please be accurate when you do say this, specifically with features and interviews. Tell them if you're not quite sure that it's 12 minutes past 10 o'clock, tell them it's going to be, at around quarter past 10, right? Because like and then they know they're okay. It's them. They're not angry about 2 or 3 minutes. When it comes to that, feature on time, please. News always on time, sports always on time, all the benchmarks, right? So if they're interested, excuse me, but you're vague on the time, they won't bother. Yeah, I disagree. Don't say within the next half hour. That makes no sense. But if you tell them, listen, yeah, like I say, in the next 10 to 15 minutes, that's good. Tell people exactly when they can hear something and they might make the actual effort, right? So that's what I'm saying to you. Throwing forward again an hour in advance makes no sense because I'm like, come on, man. I don't even know if I'm going to be alive in 1 hour's time. Not to be dramatic, but it's true, right? So anyway, sidebar. Okay. You are invited. It's important that listeners feel that they can join in at any time because they always are. Come, just listen anytime you want to. Stick around for the whole show. Tune in tomorrow. Like, don't forget, like, these are the times and this is the place. Overcoming any type of resistance, right? So, if the talent doesn't understand the absolute importance of formatics, then then you might as well just look, it sounds awful, then fire them. Because if you don't get the baseline, the foundation of what makes radio or a show work, not great, work, then what to first answer the question, why don't you understand? Is what I'd ask them. What's wrong with the concept? What's so difficult, right? And if they can tell me, if they can say, "Oh, it's this and this and this," and I can say, "Okay, great. Let's explain it further so you understand, like the ripple effect or the immediate effect of why it is so mandatory, right? Crucial to how we do this and practice this medium." Then sure, but if you genuinely are being oblivious because you don't want to know, right, then that's the person you need to get rid of, right? It's to everyone's benefit if talent understands how listeners listen. And the easiest way to do that is always remember throughout your career, you will always still be a listener. So you will not lose touch with reality. I promise you. Every time you put on the radio, you are still a listener. Even if you've been in, I'm saying on the other side of that particular radio set, right, for 50 years, 40 years, 30 years, 10 years, right? So give credit where credit is, and repetition is the way we learn and memorize. So repeat and repeat and repeat until the audience know your details and the station shows details. Always say the show name, always say the frequency, do the tagline. These are things that people need to like so subliminally remember, right? It should be really scraped. Or what is that when you go and you sculpt something, and bash it into their memory, right? Okay. Anyway, okay, so each format and station has a slightly different structure, and they all have one thing in common. Your listener should never feel the pressure. You feel the pressure while you feel, that you feel while, ooh, excuse me, I'm just getting the text because I can see it's coming. While you feel doing your show. Again, just like when you go for surgery, you like the doctors need to make you feel the stress that they are going through. Why, man? Like you're the one that is being serviced, right? Okay, let's go to page 58. So beyond powerful radio, eh? And it says there, formatic tips. Let's have a read, right? So you see that little gray box there, the grayed out area. Wait, actually, hold on. Does it actually say formatics? No. Okay. So, because I remember Tommy Kramer. Okay. Right. Tommy Kramer here. Okay, here we go. Be sensitive to repetition. A good talent varies the way everything is done. The listener wants consistency, but not predictability. And that we've seen before, right, in other lessons. Even if positioning phrases or branding should require that things be said in the same words all the time, the talent can still vary the inflection of the words. And remember, repetition becomes boring quickly and is also an indicator of the deadly automatic pilot mentality that can bring down a talent or a station very fast, right? So do your part, keep the talent energized by pointing out good examples when they occur or freshening things up that may have become tired sounding, right? Put that down in the textbook just in case we have to reference it again. All right, here we go. Some formatics will continue, right? Don't use a radio speak. In other words, don't sound like an announcer, sound like a real person. Don't say 10 to the hour of 5 o'clock. And yes, say it sarcastically because whoever talks that way? No one, no one. So we might have heard that. I don't. Someone must have done it, and enough people must have done it in the olden days, right? So that it became a thing, and it's for some other reason I don't understand why. Let's say, for example, let's say I don't even think I was exposed to it. I'm old, man, but what's fascinating is to see a millennial or a Gen Zer say the same thing when they are busy practicing or they're busy doing studio time or whatever it may be. It's so weird, right? It's so weird. No, because where do you learn it from? There's no one saying it, right? Anyway, so don't be that person who suddenly feels like they've got to talk like this and sound perfect and again almost as if you're doing a commercial. Anyway, talk normally, but talk professionally, right? Listeners speak professionally. Okay. Listeners care only whether it's interesting or relevant to them. Formatics do not have to be dry and boring, as we just said there from the excerpt of the book. Just make it like formatics are. It's simple. It's easy. Tell the time and tell the temperature. Tell what's happening next. Do it. It's easy. If you are a good jock, you can make anything sound good, right? So pull the listener into the radio with you, like in other words, keep them engaged. Avoid saying anything that pushes the listener away. That's very broad, but I think you know when you will know when you're doing that, right? Because we've heard so many presenters in our life do that to us. So always tell the benefit of the show or station. What is the benefit to me as a listener, right? And use real language. Talk on the air the way you're going to talk in life. Obviously, please just clean that up because we want a presenter, right? Not just a person. Okay, so sorry, I just yeah, I heard something in the house. Not a ghost, just like anyway. My word. Anyway, just be entertaining being lectured by me. All right. Anyway, now connect with it. So let's just end this lecture up. Right. Let's connect with the listener. Tell me, don't read to me. The rule of one. So don't do one. So don't do more than one main thing per. Let's say. So when I say break, it refers to whenever you go on air. We have also covered that. Hit the target. So always talk to one listener at a time and aim at the target, that particular person. You, what have you gone to? What do you have to say? What are you thinking about? Like, how was your day? Promote anything of benefit coming up on your show. So be truthful. Never promise anything as coming up after the break. That's like saying, I'm going away now. Don't tell them that there's a break coming. Please don't ever say, like, let's go. Ooh, ooh. Do not say we need to go pay the bills. My word. I'm not ripping anyone off. It sounds like the worst. It's the worst thing to actually, and the worst thing to say that you are now going to play a spot break, right? So you're almost telling the listener, yeah, you can go away, man. Even though we know that people are like people listen to ads, right? But if you're going to tell them I want to play ads now, and also use that awful cliche, oh, it. It's it's bad radio on top of bad radio. Anyway, don't tell the listener what to think. It's really annoying to have a dictator as a presenter. Sell the dream first before you give the information. If you don't make me want what's being offered, there's no reason for me to care about anything else that you got to say, right? So sell the dream first. In other words, give them a good teaser, give them a good promise, and then obviously fulfill that promise, right? And then obviously have a roadmap. Know that your segments are at the very, very basic or simplest nature, a beginning, a middle, and an end. Then move on, right? When it's done, move on. So, how to end phone calls? Keep the unnecessary parts of the call off air. In other words, when you do take a caller, you got to pre-screen them, right? So, in other words, you got to talk to them and ask them a couple of questions of music's playing, and then when you go back on air, you have to be the one to start at the point of that pre-conversation that you had that is the most interesting and also the most relevant to what you are doing on air. Okay, so in other words, formatics for the callers, reset the stage. Every couple of minutes, briefly reset the stage of anyone or for anyone who may just be joining the show. Break the habit of taking a break. So, for example, don't throw away a single minute of your airtime, even if your station requests that you give a standard introduction to other elements. The mark of a professional is the ability to make every word his or her own. And don't panic if you need a moment. Like, rather take the moment, right? Rather take the moment, be silent, gather yourself, or play a song. The listener will not know. I'm saying they're going to be like, what happened to this person? Unless you go out and you actually sound like you're manic or sound like you're confused or sound that you panicked. Anyway, okay. before each break. So you need to tease or reset and involve your listener. So use a cliffhanger, in other words, a teaser, right? So after each break, reset your topic, in other words, recap, right? Say your name, say obviously the frequency, like just around, just recap the actual topic and where you are in the conversation, right? Don't forget to throw out the phone number and definitely to tell the people the time. Okay, let's say literally see my dramatic pause there. Listen, have a great week. I wish you all the best for your formatives, and I will see you the week after. Cheers, bye.